Dear colleagues, please take your seats. We are proceeding with the detective part of our event. You will hear about a real crime, just as it can happen in a criminal novel. Ours have won, everything ended well, but the story is entirely criminal. All of us are in our age who can get nervous, but I'm announcing from the very beginning that it all ended well. Now we will hear from the operator with whom it actually happened. So let us begin. This is Vlad Matvienko from Terka Metro, and he's going to share the story of how they nearly lost all their resources and how they avoided the situation. So hopefully you can hear me well. My presentation will be primarily about saving the resources of LIRs, the members of RIPE NCC, and as it was announced by Alexei, this is one of those stories which you do not even perceive as probable until it actually happens. After that, you totally change your perception of the probability of such an event, and judging from the catastrophic consequences for an LIR, your approach to safety and your priorities about safety, about implementing algorithms change entirely, just like our approach of physical safety, safeguarding our critical infrastructure is also a crucial issue for us. So there is an LIR which has several dozens of thousands of addresses, and imagine this thriller situation. You are coming back from your vacation and you are finding this kind of a letter in email. It says that the user account was removed. This is something you do not expect to see. This is something you do not understand. You don't understand what to do or what the next steps are. You, of course, understand that something bad has happened. All your plans for spending the free time in the evening quickly float away, and you are doing your best to understand what the hell is happening. I don't know what options you would suggest, so I assumed that maybe my email was broken and the account was broken later. Maybe the RIPE account itself was broken. Maybe there was some malfunction on the part of RIPE itself. I checked all of those opportunities, but this simply wasn't true. There were no extra sessions, there were no hijacked devices. So one more, I think, that I checked it on the part of RIPE, and we were the only LIR who got this problem. This was the beginning. Actually, we could calm down at this point, but suddenly I got another piece of information from an external provider, and this is an excerpt from that letter. Yeah, it is, if not really correct language-wise, but yeah, there is even a mistake in the word RIPE itself. But mostly these mistakes are about are caused by the situation that someone was in a hurry, and it really made us think. We checked the RIPE database, and there is an information on connectivity there. So from this letter, we learned that the company has changed its owner, and also at the moment we look through the RIPE database, we realized that the import-export objects were deleted. We understood that someone got access to this data, and we couldn't understand how this could happen. So the company is allegedly changing its owner, so we checked this information in the state registry by name, by number. The result was always the same. So the company got the new founder, the new CEO, the new legal address. How this all could happen, but we don't understand how this could happen. So there are attempts to take control over someone else's enterprise. This happens quite often with some real estate, some property. And here, the attack is on the main resource of LIR, the IPv4 addresses. So back then we didn't even understand how this could happen, but more or less, having analyzed this, we understood how it could work. Someone made the fake documents on acquisition of the company, register the fake document in the state registry, then makes the legal excerpts from the state registry, and then gets the access and then transfers resources. The point 2 looks a bit suspicious, but in practice they could do it. So what are the outcomes? First, we understood that all the actions that are made with the RIPE database, all of them looked completely legal, because this is a low-level attack, so to speak. RIPE was acting based on legal documents. Also, based on how fast the events were developing, the company would probably have no IPv4 addresses after the weekend. So we had this question before us: what should we do? Now, I would like to specify the fact that RIPE is open as a structure. So it can have conferences similar to these ones. You can actually talk to people from the company. There is a support on social media. There is a mailing list. There is a Telegram channel. And back then, all of this played a positive role. That's because, regardless of this happening outside of working hours, I was able to ask Alexei Semeniaka to temporarily block this profile until any changes would happen on Monday. I'm very grateful to Alexei that he actually managed to do that, but this was maybe the key factor in the successful resolution of this situation, this possibility to react fast and to block any activities which would include any changes or transfer of the objects. Next, since Monday, we started this long process, the legal process of contacting the police, the prosecutor's office, the Ministry of Justice, contacting the registrar, etc., etc. That was a long process. We made some mistakes in that process as well, and I won't even discuss the mistakes that enabled us proven why we were the victim. RIPE was quite helpful in this entire process. It monitored all the events, and this process had a positive ending. We got back the corporate rights we could lose, and now we had to get back the access to RIPE objects. This took another couple of months. In total, all of this took about a year, and throughout this process, the objects of our company were blocked. But once again, thanks to this timely reaction on the part of RIPE, thanks to this timely blockage, we did not suffer much. A few words on getting back the rights for LIR portal. Quite often we can hear this opinion privately that, for instance, RIPE is too bureaucratic and it takes lots of correspondence to do anything. But when you find yourself in such a difficult situation, you start realizing that all of this is being done for the benefit of members. In this case, there were some situations where RIPE was providing this electronic data excerpts, but we needed to get the legal confirmation of authenticity. This was more expensive, this took longer time, but this would make some additional grounds for proving that we were right. So we spent quite a lot of time to analyze what exactly were the mistakes that enable such a situation of our company nearly losing its resource. I've been taking RIPE courses, participating in RIPE meetings, but this information that I got from RIPE events concerning security, I did not fully implement the recommendations provided by RIPE itself. Also, this case became the ground for some suggestions to make. Let's discuss some of them. As regards to the algorithms protecting LIR resources, there should be the algorithm both legally and technically on the level of RIPE. So we need to monitor the state registry to see if the registry data are not being changed. Also, there should be a monitoring of notification attributes. There should be forwarding of those letters so that they easily get through to the most important people in the company. Maybe it also means adding additional employees to this department. So whenever someone is on a vacation, you would be able to provide another person responsible for that, and also the CEO should be informed. So some of the examples here. In Ukraine, we have a number of services which enable monitoring of the status of companies. Most of them are free. When these events were happening, the information in the electronic registry was updated only once a week. So this gave the readers quite a big spare time to do their evil projects. I only recently saw that the new government has announced a number of activities to prevent such criminal actions. So the data is going to be updated within a day, daily. I haven't checked if this has been implemented already, but this would really help to faster react to any changes about your company. As for the monitoring of letters from LIR portal. This is quite understandable. And now let me briefly discuss notification attributes. There are two of those, as you can probably know. The first one requires email, and it sends information to you only in case of the unsuccessful attempt to change information. In this case, we did not get any email because this looked legal. And another attribute would send a confirmation if it were configured, but it wasn't, unfortunately. So we made a rough estimate of how many LIRs have this attribute set up to MNT notify. It is roughly about 10%. We do not know how accurate that is, but in any case, that's just a small number. So if by any reason someone gets legal access to your objects, you can learn about that too late. Also, as we saw from this incident, it's important not only to get this notification, but also to react to it within hours or even minutes. So this base only enables sending information to email, but we realize that there should be scripts that would be taking this information and sending it to every channel possible through text message, Telegram, Viber, etc. So this text of that message should be standardized, and the letters from RIPE should be standardized, so that we avoid the break-in of the system. I won't be going into too much of a detail. Also, if we consider the previous facts I named, I tried to analyze if we had all these measures in place, would it help to avoid the situation we faced? Actually, it wouldn't, but it would enable us to react faster. So having looked through the time codes, we realized that sometimes we missed hours, sometimes we missed days. So if we had those notifications coming faster to all the key players, this would be quite a positive dynamic. So this is true for this particular case. There were some mistakes on the part of that attackers, and I won't discuss those in detail, but can there be a situation where a slightly different strategy is used by the attacker? Would that be helpful? Well, that's again just a rough estimate, but my conclusion is that there were chances for them to take all the necessary actions to transfer resources to some third party until we could react. So this was the unpleasant conclusion we got. I don't know a full solution yet. Maybe we could introduce some quarantine in case of such critical operation as a transfer of resources, so that it would take a couple of days for such a request to be processed. That's just a suggestion for now, but this would enable some additional time to be available for the victim to protect itself, to respond somehow. What else? To make some small summary, the IP addresses are becoming ever more scarce. They are becoming more pricey, and we cannot expect that the malicious activity will decrease because someone will always want to get those addresses. And we understand that when IPv6 is fully deployed, this will be at least partially resolved.
But when this happens, it is too early to say. It's not for me to say. Summarizing, I would like to tell you about some offers, some propositions. I'm not prepared to do this for the community, for the standard procedure. Using this venue, I would like to voice this and get some feedback. Hopefully, this all stems from this case. So that will be in conflict with some other process. This is some risk operations transfer or access to a portal, or the notify attribution, not just for the non-authorized attempt, but for authorized attempt, also for the headlines. So I don't know about now, but what was the situation as of then? Some third party had access to that portal, and the all data would not register that. So that was hardly possible with a standard RIPE procedure. So the non-standard one was used. So perhaps introduction on some time quarantine for the most risky operations, transactions. Perhaps that's it from me. That's all I wanted to discuss. Using this opportunity, I would like to once again thank RIPE and specifically some associate Alena Muravska for the difficulties overcome. RIPE never presented that as an obstacle. It was all competent and professional. The monitoring of the process, all the facilitation was provided. Thank you very much. Thank you, dear colleagues. If you have questions, a disclaimer. Here we have the situation as a non-standard one, but this is not procedural. This story isn't, and you cannot count on it being saved in case of fire. And they will look for and find some associates and respond to this. You shouldn't rely upon it. So this latter part of Vladislav's report on your security was very important. It's your own responsibility. You have to rescue yourselves. Max Tuliev, just 2 minutes. That reminds me, I skipped one thing. Involuntarily. I didn't like to arrive at some ready-made solution or algorithm. I wanted to reflect upon these specific features of the situation, the importance of a quick response, rapid response, because I cannot imagine how the situation can develop if the transfer is done and then the blockage is introduced. And that corporate rights restoration was a long process, almost 1 year. So those were the specific features, and that's something I wanted to cover. Another point, here you can see the low-level work. We work with the register and got legal slips better. In the wings, in the backstage, there was an attack to the high level when the RIPE is approached with some false documents, or when there's one of the founders uses a semi-legal scheme, or somebody who was fired tries to use some connections. The attack should not follow the algorithm, but the probability is there. So the probability increases by the vulnerability. So we will have another paper. Maxim will discuss the procedures and the problems. Now we have questions to Vladislav. It's a question and a comment. Considering that Flash 17 is more than $0.5 million, then the cost that's for black registers 10,000 per shift. This is an interesting business opportunity. So you looked it up. So the price. Well, I know how much it is to charge one company. So I expected some attacks, but we have this resource that costs money, and we do not know how to work with it and protect it in Ukraine. And this is going to happen. So how we circumvented the situation? When we started hearing about it, when there's something in a raid of real estate is possible, why not IP addresses? So we attached all our IP addresses to a company that cannot be raided for $10,000. Here's the question. Why were you attacked out of many networks that can be bigger? I cannot answer this question because the situation is not investigated thoroughly. The corporate rights we restored, but the case is still pending. So I should not make any premature statements. I'm not prepared to answer this question. When I analyzed it, I discovered that in theory anyone can fall victim of this. So to me it was also very surprising the situation with the registrar. That was nonsensical. But now with the new government there are many initiatives aimed at anti-radar support or protection. And that's no, I don't know. I'm not ready to answer. Ukr Telecom. I have a question. The transfer quarantine. Maybe this is a question to RIPE. To hold the transfers for some time after the change of ownership or some administrative accounts manipulations, 10 days after the change. I can put a question that nobody can ever answer. Do you know what makes RIPE different from NCC? So you have to, it's a RIPE NCC is you, is us. RIPE is you. I'm serious. The policies are created by communities. That's the task forces. RIPE NCC never initiate any policy making. That's the community, the task forces. I'm serious about this matter. You can enter a task force. It takes 5 minutes, takes up 5 minutes of your time. You register, you log in with your email address, you confirm that that's you, really you verify, and that's it. You are on. So initiate that. That's normal. That's something that is expected from you. I'm not saying this because I want to, refer you to some place unknown. This is a working tool. We are policymakers as RIPE. This is not some kind of stardust. This is operational, fully operational. We need new mechanisms for the community. The community decide that they have a challenge and they make suggestions. Some people object to this and suggest something else. So as a result of this discussion, after some time, we have a document that is called policy. and we execute it because we are an executive body. If you take this decision, we will execute. I ask you to do that. It's not a figure of speech of any kind. There are difficulties. The English language, new people coming in, and you have to present your case with more detail before such a person. I understand this. It's a difficulty, but that's how it works. There's no other way. So please come, please make suggestions. We have the special person who helps you develop policies, PDO, Policy Development Officer. That's the acronym. You can start with this person, contacting this officer. I have this concern, how can I develop it into a policy? Start doing it. Another question, very quickly, because my name is Nikolai. Can I see the last slide with your suggestions? Do you realize that if your domain is raided with false documents, everything will, but the first point and the last point is not doable. So just imagine the situation when it's not just LIR accounts, but the domain with the accounts notified and so forth. Another question to you and the community. Do you understand that all this, the validations, the quarantine can be turned against you as the owner? You bought this business. The previous owner will get the money and will play the same game with you. I agree with your concerns, and that's why I'm saying that RIPE meeting is the right venue to discuss that. Yes, there is a problem there because of the Ukrainian peculiarities, legal peculiarities, and we have to explain this to the community why this should be done, because there's a problem. But reading the news, I can see raids not just in the former Soviet republics in the EU. It's a matter of price, brother. But the problem, the challenge is there. So I'm not suggesting that I present a specific algorithm, specific solution, but this should be discussed and solved, because you should reinforce all the time to stay protected. On my own behalf, I like to say that for the mains, if it doesn't work, it's all right with me. Well, this is a matter for discussion. It's not a cooking recipe book.